So the first thing we do, right, so we're doing TDD. So as always, when we do TDD, or even if we're not doing TDD, the first thing we want to do is run all our tests. Make sure that we're in good shape for doing whatever our next step is. So let's go run all our tests. And we'll run all the tests, not just the domain tests. All right, and everything is running. Cool. So let's see where we left off. I think we took some notes. I hope. Oh yeah, the full house validation is broken, so we should go fix that. And I think we'll have to. Oh hey, Copperbeardy, nice to see you. I read shortstop and because you wrote it as one word, I'm like, oh, I miss baseball. All right, so we have this as a disabled test. We were sort of ignoring it for a while because we wanted to push forward on sort of more of the core functionality in the dice game. So let's go check it out. So let's go find it. There it is. Let's undo the disabled. So the problem is basically since this is in our full house test, so these other scenarios, for example, this one is just, a sequence, and that basically scores 0. We should probably rename the test because this was probably one of the first tests we wrote, so it'd be a good idea to rename it to reflect that it's not just a non-full house, it's actually a straight. So straight roll scores 0. Afi, when did the JetBrains Technology Day overlook? That's a good question. Maybe we'll do it this week. Oh, I remember what it depends on. It depends on when the videos are up on YouTube. So then we can sort of look them over and see which one might be the most interesting to do. I figure we'll start with one and see how long that takes based on past experience. Although it's one past experience, we can spend a lot of time on just one of them. So I don't know if they're on YouTube yet. Last I looked, it was a few days ago, it wasn't on there yet. I presume if it's not on there today, or if it's not on there now, it should be up there shortly, but I don't know what their schedule is. But that's really what we're waiting for. I should have a reminder somewhere. Need to create like a stream ideas column somewhere. I really should rename this board because it's no longer sort of just JitterTed overlays. Yeah, so basically a watch party. Yeah. Hey, Nizar. Alright, somebody remind me to create a channel in the Discord for sort of stream ideas, and then we can throw that in there. Alright. So this straight obviously scores 0. This is a valid straight. We've got 3s and 5s, right? So it's not straight. A valid full house, right? So a full house is 3 of one kind, 2 of another, right? That's the definition. So this clearly qualifies, and so that should score as 19 because that's 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 5 plus 5, right? 19. This one is 1 of one, 4 of another. That scores as 0. This is 2 of one, 3 of another. I mean, very similar to this one, but it should also work fine. This one is all 5, so it should also... Oh, actually, yeah, so I scored it as 0, and I wanted to check the rules on this. Let's see, where's my Yacht rule? Yacht. Why is that so slow? Okay. Let's see. So full house, 3 of one kind, some of all dice. A yacht cannot be scored on a full house, but can be scored on 4 of a kind. Okay, so a yacht is basically all the same. I understand that. All 5 dice showing the same face. So this rule, a yacht, we should probably say that. So we can put that. A yacht, all 5 same for. Now it says cannot be scored. Does that mean you can't put it in that category? Because there's a difference between cannot, basically a score of 0 and a cannot be scored. Any of these references help us? Let's take a look, see what we get from some other opinions on the rules. Let's see. So, full house. Yeah, it doesn't say. I'm gonna say that you can put it there, you just get a 0 score, because that's the way I would, because generally the way the game is played, you can put something in any category, and if it doesn't fulfill that category, it doesn't score anything. Okay, so if we run all, we'll switch back to running all the domain tests. And this should be the only one that fails. Wait. This passes now? Did we fix this? Or... Did we... Wait a second. It's not... oh, that's so weird. It's not rebuilding... Oh, something is wrong with the test runner. Oh, it doesn't have a test annotation. Thank you. I'm like, why don't I see it here? So I guess when I added the disabled, I must have removed the test flag, which was silly. Okay. Oh. And this is why you want tests to fail, right? So that you can be sure that it's actually getting executed and working properly. Okay, so this fails because it's actually scoring it as 26 instead of the actual 0 is what it should be doing. So let's go take a look at the score. So pretty much the validation here is incorrect. So we've got a die to count map, and so the number of dice occurring 2 more times is 2, but that's not sufficient. So what we want is also there should only be 2. So not only should the number of dice occurring 2 or more times be 2, but it should only be 2 unique die numbers. So what we probably want is that. So we could do an early return. Let's do do we want to do an early return? I don't. This isn't quite a guard clause, so I'm a little uncomfortable with an early return. So one way we could do, well, let's just do this the simplest thing that will possibly work. We could do if die to count map size is greater than 2, then return 0. So we could do that. Whoops, false, not 0. But basically, this would not be a valid thing. And this should pass. And it does. Okay. So that was sort of the easiest thing we could do, the obvious thing. We could teacher says no. So I don't like early returns like this. So I like them when they're sort of validation guard clauses that you basically check something and immediately return, or check something else and immediately return. But here we're sort of doing a bit more work. So let's. I also sort of don't want. So we could put it here. So we could say and basically this. That has to be equal to 2. I wonder if this is sufficient, actually. Because, so the only time this would be insufficient is if you got 4 of one and then 1 of another. So you still need to have them, okay, so they're both required. Yes. And so, I don't, this is a fairly complex expression, even though it's fairly readable. It's unclear what this part is. So let's do some refactoring. So we've got all our test passing. So now we're in green, and so we can refactor. So let's refactor this out. Can't think of a good name for this though. I could extract the whole thing, but we use it in the next step. Naming is hard, yes. Create data count. I mean, that's what I was thinking. It's fine. I mean, it's not the best name in the world, but it does sort of get a bit of the noise. This stuff that's a little bit noisy out of the way. And then we can extract this out to count for die occurring or two or three or 2 or more. It is hard to write easy code. I'll say 2 or more for now. It is also easy to write hard code. Yeah, works both ways. Then we could probably just inline this. Well, we could inline this. We couldn't inline this because this is used in the map. We could do a var here. That'll make this easier to read. Because really, we only care about the size. And so this is really this size. This is really has two unique dice. 2 unique dice. I'm not sure what it's suggesting. It's suggesting that instead of passing in the map, to pass in the size. No, I want it to pass the map. Let's just flip this, because I think that might be easier to read. And yes, it technically changes the semantics because it's a short circuit, but that's fine. So has 2 unique dice. It's interesting. There's part of me that feels like, should this even be part of the score, or should this be a responsibility that belongs to the dice roll itself? An interesting question. Well, let's see. So how do we feel about this? So it has 2 unique dice, and the number of dice occurring 2 or more times is 2. So why 2 or more? So because it could either be 2 or 3. I mean, we could basically say we might be able to actually, that's a good question. So what we're saying is that all 5s is 0. 6, 6, 5, 5, 4 is also 0. And then it's basically, it's always going to be 2 of one and 3 of the other, right? That's really the rule, 2 of one and 3 of the other. Maybe we can simplify this. Maybe in our instead of count for occurring 2 or more, we filter 2 or 3 occurrences. Because if they're 2 or 3, no, we're still gonna have to check for the size, because if we just check for 2 or 3, where is it? There's basically this situation. We get these 2, and we'd ignore the fact that there's 1 left over. So we always need 2 of one and 3 of the other. That's always what we need. And so maybe there's a simpler way to do it, but we always need 2 of one and 3 of another. And so if we count for 2 or more, we'll get ones that are 2, 3, or 4. But then we also have an additional thing that there must be then 2 of those. And if there's 1 die that's 4, there'll only be 1. Yeah, so I can't check for 2 or 3 here. That doesn't help me. Because I could. I could say, equals 2 or equals 3, but it doesn't really matter. Does it? So the case that we're worried about is basically this case, where we've got 2 of 2, 2 of 1, and then 2 of another, and then this leftover 1. So if we filter for 2 or 3, we'll get 2 dice, but that's actually not good enough. And so there might be an easier way to do this, but here where we're checking for 2 or more occurrences, checking for 2 or 3, maybe it's more intention revealing, but it won't matter from a test standpoint. But it might make it more intention revealing. So for that reason, let's do that. Let's change this to 2 or 3. No, well, 66664 would match the 2 or more, but then when we find out how the number of dice occurring 2 or more times, you would get 1, and it must be 2. So checking for 2 or 3 doesn't help with the fact that we still need to then check for... I mean, we could say, give me all the ones that occur 2 or 3 times, and then sum up how many we've captured, and it should equal 5. It's sort of 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I don't know that it makes it any more simple. And then... Yeah, I mean, I could check for... I mean, that's what... Basically, this reduction, the create die to count map, basically tells me how many of each die, and I basically can either say it shouldn't be... It basically... Well, I'm just saying it should be 2. So my requirements are it must be 2 different dice. Actually, is that sufficient? That it's just 2 different... No, because we always fall back to the fact that there's 2 different rolls, right? So, like 6664, we do a die to count map, we'll get there's 2 unique dice, but that's not enough. So it's not just that there's 2 unique dice, but also that both of them must occur at least twice. We could say that one has to occur twice and one has to occur 3 times, but it doesn't matter which one occurs twice or 3 times. So this is sort of surprisingly, or maybe unsurprisingly, complex. There might be even simpler ways to do this. Like we could filter. We could, yeah. I mean, that's what we're doing. Is we're basically collecting the die the die to count maps, how many times each die occurs, and we're getting rid of basically those that don't occur 2 or 3 times, and then we just need to make sure that we still end up with 2. And so I think that and so now we're well covered by all the scenarios. Man, that round fast. So let's see. Close. Okay. So for is valid full house, we basically create the die to count map. We count for the die occurring 2 or 3 times. And then we basically say if it has 2 unique dice and the number of dice occurring 2 or more times is 2, this should actually be 2 or 3 times. Then it's a valid full house, and basically we feel like this should be flipped though. Right? So if it's not a valid full house, then we return 0. If it is, then we basically sum up all the dice. I feel like, have we not done this somewhere before? No, because we just count and then multiply. Although I guess we could reduce the same thing, but this is fine. All right, so we fixed that and had some nice some pretty decent refactoring. So we fixed scoring for full house in the situation was that. Situation of 6655. Cool. All right. We got full house. So check. Oh, I should have done that before. Let's amend that commit. Okay. All right. So now we're back. So we've basically finished a full cycle of TDD. Although here we were fixing a bug, but for fixing a bug, the process is the same. Right? You start with a failing test, You figure we had the failing test already because we had encountered it before, but we could have seen it as we were playing and say, oh, wow, we didn't handle that scenario. So we basically had a test. It failed. We made sure it failed, right? Because I messed up and didn't have the test annotation, which surprised me. Why is this not failing? It should be failing. So that was important. And if you think that doesn't happen frequently, it does. So that's why you want the test to fail. So the test failed, and it failed in an expected way. And then we implemented a really simple way of getting it to pass, right? Kind of a semi, an in-the-middle return, which maybe we didn't like, but it doesn't matter, right? So one of the things that in TDD you want to do is you want to get from red to green as fast as possible. Because once you're in green, then you can do the refactoring part. And that's actually what we spent the most time on, is what makes, sort of what is the good refactoring that we want to do. And, it's funny because the idea that you can basically write just bad code is weird, because I think we're sort of trained to think, no, you want to create really good code. But it's actually a lot easier to create bad or straightforward code, right? That might have duplication or be difficult to understand, and then clean it up. But the problem is, if you miss that cleanup process, right, the refactoring process, you're going to end up in a really bad situation. So you can't just stop at, oh, I got it to pass with some really bad code. You still gotta go through the refactor, and so that's why it's red green refactor. The refactor really is a critical part of the TDD process. Okay, so let's see. Let's actually play the game, because we actually haven't played it in a while, or haven't played it since, I guess, last time. So let's go run it. And we'll local host. Oh wait, what is it running on? 9090. Okay. So we roll the dice. We may not like the layout. At some point, maybe I'll, have any front-end designer folks who want to take a stab at making this nicer. Otherwise, I'll attempt something at some point. So how do we want to do this? We got a 6, 6, 5, 3, 6, 4. So we can score that in the sixes category. Roll again. We'll put that in the fives category. Roll again. That's a bummer. But we could cheat, because right now this is it doesn't apply the rule of once you've assigned a role to a category, you can't assign to that category again. But we'll cheat because no rules. Here we'll put fours. Put that in the ones. Put that in the twos. Put that in the threes. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pretty much that's it. That's all we've got. Let's see, can we get a full house? Nope, that was close. Nope. 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 How many times will we have to do this before we get a full house? Too many times. We're gonna get there? I don't think we're gonna get there. I wonder what the probabilities of getting a full house are. Alright, well, we're not gonna get it. So this is our score, but we did cheat, right? From the game point of view, we didn't implement this rule. So right now, that's a rule we need to do this. We'd like to reflect this in the user interface. So what do we want to do here? We want to So we could do this next. There's also the other aspect of the game that we haven't explored, which is the reroll part, right? So right now we've been rolling and assigning directly to a category, but there is the opportunity for you to reroll several of the dice. Let's see, the dice can be rolled up to 3 times in a turn. So each time you assign a category, it's a turn. And you can basically re-roll the dice. Do you have to re-roll all of them? Because I remember when I played this game, you could say, well, I want to basically only re-roll these, not all of them. What is... dice can be rolled up to 3 times in a turn. Aw, it's Flash. Let's see. Yeah, so you can hold dice. So, I like how some people spell it yacht with a Y-O-T. I don't think that's... How many people... That's funny. Because yacht, I mean, the English language spelling of the boat, yacht, is Y-A-C-H-T, but it's pronounced Y-O-T, which is always kind of funny. So we have a couple of options. Let's actually put those down, what we've got. So this is one option, is basically we'll say whoops. What we want to do is, so this one is constrain to only assign roll to category once per round. That's one thing we could do. Another thing we can do is re-roll 1 or all 5 of the dice up to 3 times per round. We also need to add other scoring categories. Add other scoring categories. Basically 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind. That's interesting. Here it talks about only 4 of a kind. I don't know if we want 3 of a kind, but 4 of a kind, straights, and a choice. So 3 of a kind, straight. That's really hard. Little straight, big straight. So little straight is what, 1 through 5. Big straight, whoops, a parenthesis. And what was it? Choice. And yacht. 5. Kind. I think that's it. I don't know that I want, I mean, like how they call it chance, not choice. It's always interesting to see like how the different variations of the sort of rules happen, you know. The kind scores 50 points. So these scored differently, right? Whereas, oh, that's interesting. So here these score specific point values, but here they don't. That's interesting. So, but we can say for the straights that it scores 30. I'll keep the full house And I kind of feel like this full house is hard enough that let's see, what would be the maximum for a full house? So 3 times 6 is 18 plus 10 is 28. I kind of feel like you should get at least that, because it's just really hard to get a full house. So let's go with that rule. Scores, so those 2 straights score 30. That scores the sum of the dice. And change full house to score 25 as per. Yep. Alright, so the most perfect full house would be 3 6s and 2 5s. 2 6s and 3 5s would be 27. So I think 25 is pretty dang good, even if you're getting like 1s and 2s. Alright, what else have we not done in the game in terms of the rules? So we don't currently have any kind of bonuses in the version that we're kind of using. Did I say 5 of a kind scores 50? No. 50. And we'll put this separately. Okay, so we basically have, one of the things I get asked a lot when talking to teams is sometimes there are features that you want to add, and of the 3 features you might be considering, no one is more important than another. And so then it comes the question of which one do you implement next. So if I have a choice of several options, or even 2 options, and there's nothing else sort of value-wise or whatever that tells me what to do next, I basically think about what sort of the solution space, right, of the whole thing, which one puts me in an area that we sort of haven't explored yet. So I just think of it like, there's this, empty land, and you're exploring it. As you implement it, you get to really know it. So kind of we've really built up the scoring and the assigning of the categories. There's still some work we need to do there in terms of restricting the number of categories, number of times you can assign to a category to once. But that kind of is like, polishing up even though it's a rule that we need to implement, it's kind of further, exploring an area we've already explored. Changing the full house score to something else, we've already kind of done that. That would be fairly straightforward. And so what I want to look at is like, what do I know least about, or what am I scared of? And so the reroll is something interesting from both a UI standpoint as well as sort of a functional standpoint. And the other kinds of scoring categories, again, they're sort of fleshing out an area that we already have pretty much figured out, right? So the score, it would just be adding code to an existing class. I'm just going to format this nicer. So, actually, I don't want that. Okay. Sometimes I get hung up on formatting things, right? So, of these, basically 3 major things, right? Adding scoring categories, the reroll, or the constraint, I feel like the reroll is probably the sort of least explored area, and the area that's probably going to force us to change the most things. And so generally, I want to attack those as soon as possible, because when you're thinking in the context of a larger project, if you're always sort of going the easy path, figuring that well, I'll get to the harder stuff later, you're not learning as much, and it also means when you do hit the hard stuff, it might be harder than it was if you did it before. For various reasons. One could be design-wise, it would have been easier to do it before. Another one is you may have questions once you hit that feature or functionality or task. You may have questions, and it may actually take time to discuss and resolve and clarify what the feature actually is. And so in the real world, right, we don't get answers immediately all the time to these kinds of questions, right? You might have to go to your product manager, you might have to talk to your clients or customers, and that can take time. And so you'd like to sort of clarify those things as soon as possible. So the things I know least about are the things that scare me, where I might have to do some research, I might have to do some prototyping or some spikes to figure things out. I want to, if I know about them, and we know we're going to implement them, because that's next up on the list or coming up on the list, I want to do those first. Versus the areas where it's like, all right, we've already implemented stuff in this area, so adding these on, we kind of know what we're going to do. And so I always want to, when given a choice, attack the things that I'm least sure about, that sort of give me the most anxiety. So in that case, this reroll is sort of the one that is sort of, I can sort of mentally think about, well, this is going to require me to write code in an area that I haven't touched a lot, which is the dice roll and how that works. So we'll have to figure out, well, what is the UI for that? Which means we're probably going to have to display the dice differently so that you can select which ones you want to reroll. So let's added missing rules. Actually, added unimplemented. So, and while we're here, while we're thinking about this, I'm trying to think if there's any. So I think we've got all the rules captured, right? So there are 12 categories. We've got them all captured. We figured out how they score. We're about to figure out how to do the reroll. And oh, that's interesting. Okay, so in Yahtzee, you get a fixed score of 25 for the full house, which I kind of like, so I'm going to steal that. So, again, there's sort of no standard for Yacht. It's like adapting all these different things. Okay, so, but I think we've captured all the rules, right? We've got all the categories. Game consists of 12 rounds. 12 rounds. Yeah, 12 rounds because there are 12 categories. So, so this should total 12. Which means 12 rounds. Yeah. All right, so let's do complete game. Let's go push that, because we actually haven't pushed for... Oh my, we haven't pushed for a while. Let's go push this stuff. In addition to like a commit bot, I need a push bot. Remind me to push. I need to remember to push after the end of each stream, and I'm not doing that. Okay, so I think we're going to do this one next. So let's move this up. And so let's see. We could start with sort of the simple case of doing a completely new role. And actually the other thing that this also so there are a few things involved here. One is the idea of rounds, but actually we don't need to track the idea of a round on its own, because that's taken care of for us by the category. As long as we restrict, basically you can only reroll up to 3 times, and then you must assign a category. So after 3 rolls, must assign to a category. So if we implement that, then that takes care of sort of tracking what round we're in, because if there are no categories left to assign, we're done. So we should actually do that, which is let's see. Game is over when all categories have been assigned. So that's a good question, Cool Wizard. Is it 1 dice or all? So you can, the rule that we're making is that, and this is generally the rules, you can, when you roll the 5 dice, you get a chance to either re-roll them all, or pick and choose and basically hold back. So I can hold back, 2 of the dice, because maybe they're 6s, and re-roll the rest. Then I maybe can hold another one and I can re-roll. But after that 3rd roll, whatever I now have as my dice roll must be assigned to a category. So if we wanted to think about a sort of a scenario or story for this, which is sometimes helpful to clarify what's going on, player rolls. Yeah. Not that roll. Player rolls, let's say 6, 6, 3, 2, 1. And so then player holds 6 and 6 and re-rolls the other 3 dice. And so player then rolls, let's say 6, 5, 4. So player holds now 6, 6, 6 and re-rolls the other 2 dice. And so then let's say the player rolls a 3 and a 3. So the resulting dice roll, so the dice roll to be assigned is now 6, 6, 6, 3, 3, which would be awesome. Right? That's why it's actually not as hard as it was for us to roll to get a full house, because we were doing it, 1 roll had to be the full house, and that's very unlikely. But if you can re-roll individual dice, it actually gets a bit easier. Since that's 3 rolls, dice. What is using up my CPU? Who's using up all my CPU? Oh, it's IntelliJ is using up all my CPU. What happened, yo? Since that's all 3 rolls allowed, must assign to category. Right, so they roll this, then they decided I want to re-roll this, and they ended up with this. So now they've got 6, 6, 6, 5, 4. So they hold on to the additional 6 and they re-roll the 5, 4, and they got 3, 3. And so now they've got this, and then they assign it to a category. Sync off. Thank you. Yes, please free up some of that memory. I have no idea. I may have to restart my computer. Not now. I'll do that after my stream. No, it's not updating. I'm not even running the EAP right now because that's been causing some issues. Although on my other machine, the EAP has actually been good. Actually, they are in beta, but I'll update later. I think I'm running the 1.3 release. Yeah, I'm running the 1.3 release. I actually think there's I actually think there's some contention between IntelliJ and something else on my machine, but stop stealing my memory. All right, so this is our scenario. Actually, scenario, not story. Okay. So that's sort of a full scenario. So what we want to do is we want to, right? We're thinking about what is the next piece of functionality we want to implement. We're doing TDD, right? So what do we do? Where's my? That's gonna be. I got my document camera all set up, but I just realized it's not. It's a little bit more in the way because it's not on my boom arm. So I just realized I'm sort of knocking into it. I'll have to figure that out because that's not good. But it is nice. I get to replace my I get to now repurpose one of my webcams, which are a scarce resource these days, into something else. Oh, Chichu, roll stream, collect grouping by, counting, interest. Oh, that looks simpler. So we group by. Well, let's see if that works. So we would replace our is valid full house. We'll delete that, and we'll basically say turn roll dots. Oh, let's see. Oh, that was in the stream. Select. And then we're going to group by. Come on. Come on, I know you're in there somewhere. Is it group by or grouping by? That's weird. I don't know why it wouldn't autocomplete it, because it is grouping by. That didn't autocomplete. Okay, so we're grouping by for each dice roll. We want dice and then counting. See, there, let me autocomplete it. And then we want entry set. Can we not just do size right away? What is the size against? What is this size? I think we can just call size directly, no? Yeah, because the entries, the set is just all the entries, but size tells us how many there are. That's all we care about. Let's run all the tests, see what happens. Uh-oh. Ah. So this one didn't work. And this is the one I was basically talking about before, right? So we can't just count that there are two. There needs to be two, but they each need to occur at least twice. So this scoring as a full house is basically is basically not a full house, so it must be scored as 0, but it's being scored as a 9. Right, so this is necessary maybe for the first part, but we still need to look at, and I don't know if there's a way using grouping, like, because we also we sort of want to count for for those that have occurrences of 2 or more. Yeah, so it can't occur more than 3 times. Well, one must occur 2 times and one must occur 3 times. So that constraint is missing. So that that takes care of the 66554 case, but it doesn't take care of the... Yeah, so when one is 2, the other must be 3. I mean, by definition. But this by itself is not sufficient. We could... So we still need to somehow... Yeah, I don't know. And it's interesting because this is an area I am fairly weak in. Is all the stuff around the collecting grouping by. I tend to be really good at like the filtering, the sort of the front end part of it, but the collecting reducing part, like this stuff, because here we basically grouped by. This might be very similar to what you gave me. Although maybe this is slightly, I mean, it's certainly nicer. I'm always use GoTo. Yeah, so the question, so let's actually move this up. So this collect, we group by so this is this is actually a die, not a dice. Dice is plural. Yeah, so these are basically the same, just doing it differently. So grouping this way is basically the same as this. In fact, function identity is basically shorthand for this. So this is exactly what I had before. It was just hard to tell that if they were similar. Yeah, I remember looking this up and it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. So these are actually the same, and so therefore we still need this. Only look at dice that occur 2 or 3 times. All right, let's roll this back. Let's run our tests. Make sure we haven't broken anything. Okay. But I appreciate the contribution. It looked different enough for me because again I'm still not like fluent in the collectors grouping by stuff that it's like, oh, that yeah, so it was harder for me to understand it. But it is basically the same. And all our tests do pass now, so. But I certainly, I mean, and also the code's open source. If anybody wants to like play with simplifying the full house aspect, go for it. One thing we might want to do, I'm not convinced we want to do it just yet, but I bet once we start adding these other scorers. LJ, don't make me restart you. Once we add the other scoring categories, like the 3 of a kind, maybe not the 3 of a kind because that's fairly straightforward, but like the straights, once we add those, I bet we're probably going to want to come out with some scoring category classes as strategies that know that basically know how to do the right thing. Yeah, 2 or more. Yeah, and that's why I had all these tests, right? Because these were the special cases that I had to watch out for. This one's the special case, and this one is a special case. Let me move those together. I actually think those are really important. So here, that's a straightforward case, but it's almost more interesting to have the special cases first. This is one of 2 cases for not being a full house where they're now I'm not even sure if this is useful, but and IntelliJ, what are you doing? Python's built-in unit test library uses your documentation comments as test descriptions. No, JavaDoc is not accessible at runtime via reflection. It is not, because Java is compiled, the documentation goes away. And so there would be no way to introspect that. You could create an annotation processor. Sorry, you could create a doclet that, yeah, no, you could do it, but no, it wouldn't be worth it. Yeah, that's the sort of one of the few downsides of compiling, I guess. Downside. So you lose that kind of information. Then you don't have to recompile it 10 times. Okay, let me just run all the tests. Okay. And they all pass, so that's good. Okay, so we were... I don't know, what description? What is description? Adds a textual description to bean definition. Okay, well. Back to what we want to implement next. So if we're handling the scenario of re-rolling dice, what we want to do is we're now thinking about... Oh yeah, so before we attempted to simplify our full house, we were talking about basically the first 2 stages of TDD, right? And so what we want to figure out when we're implementing now a new feature is what should it do, right? What do we want this thing to do? And so figuring out what should it do, we don't want to start with sort of the most complex scenario, right? This is sort of a full-fledged, you re-roll the maximum number of times to sort of maximize your score. But we'd like to start with something simpler. So we could just do re-roll all, but I don't think that helps us because we sort of, you can squint at the current functionality and it already does that. So what is actually new functionality is being able to re-roll but hold back 1 or more of the dice. So let's say we want to start off with holding back, let's just say 1 of the dice and re-rolling the rest. So let's think about what that looks like. So that's not really under the scorer. Is it? Maybe it is. Well, we'll start there. Well, So okay. So I was about to like go into the scorer and basically write some more. Well, actually, the scorer test. So something like wouldn't be the dice roller test because that's more concerned about the dice. Although we might have a reroll, or reroll and hold functionality. But here's where we want to basically step back outside, right back to our what do we want it to feel like from the front end, right? And so what I like to do, and this is often referred to as outside in, although there's some debate around what exactly that means. But I consider it outside in because we're saying, okay, we're about to implement some code, but we want to make sure that it's going to eventually supply the right API to the front end. Right? So we want the front end to have the whatever functionality the front end needs. Right? This stuff in here serves the game which we're playing at the front end. So let's take our step back and take a look at our basically our roll result page. Sorry, there's a part of me that like I want to clean up these buttons because they're really annoying. Because I really want those buttons to be part of this table. But we'll skip that for now. So basically, this is the roll that we just made, and we want to be able to select one or more for. So the question is, do we want to select the ones to re-roll, or do we want to select the ones to hold back? Does it matter? It probably is easier to select the ones you want to hold on to. I think that makes more sense to me. So instead of just displaying these as sort of just a string of numbers, we're going to have to display them in a bit more complexity. So instead of just having a roll, which right now is a string, we're going to need to basically a list of the dice, some list of the dice. So let's make that change first, right? So we're changing just one thing at a time, and the thing we're working on is we want to change it so that each individual die is individually represented, so we can actually click to select them, and then we'll have to play around with sort of what does the UI for selection look like. But we can probably do some simple. We can start out with the very straightforward checkbox, and then we can worry about painting it more nicely. Minds and machines. Yes, we could nest the entire table inside of the form tag, and that's eventually what we'll want to do. Is we'll want to, instead of explicitly writing these buttons out by hand in this file, we'll actually want to pull out the category names as part of the iteration through the categories. That's kind of where I would head. And so then you'd always have all the categories, and the button would be displayed in the table, and the table would be inside the form, and the whole thing would be a form. So yes, we're just not doing that now because, like I was saying before, it's like I kind of know how I want to do that, so I want to explore the stuff that I kind of don't know how to do, or don't know exactly what we want to do. So, but yes. Okay, so what we want to do here is, so instead of roll, this is going to be a different representation of roll. So we'll probably we could wrap it in checkboxes. Like that's the dirt cheap simplest way. Certainly not the prettiest way to do it, but we could do that. So that would actually have to be in the form. Speaking of being inside the form, although that would be in a separate form to make it easier. So let's wrap this inside of a form. And this form action is going to be just that. Although it might actually be we might actually want a button. Well, it's going to be th action, and that's going to go to reroll, and that will be method post. It is totally TDD. I'm just not TDDing the front end because that is just not worth it. I could do it. I could totally do it. I mean, we could totally write a test that basically got the page, examined it, looked to see that there was the appropriate number of checkboxes, that it was in a form. But for this kind of stuff, it wouldn't be worth it. And I know you're sort of trolling a bit, but just wanted to, for those who may not be aware. Because remember, TDDs also don't just slavishly follow the steps, use your judgment. Which is always an out, right? It's like, well, I think we should just ignore a test over here. Okay, so we've got it inside a form, and so then, what is it? We want a checkbox, which is a select. Why not have emit turned on? Select. Option. Not opt group. Option. Actually, I don't want a drop down. I want a checkbox. Yeah, I mean, we could be a bit semantic and sort of, well, there should be a form and it should have a role, and the roles should be checkboxes. But even that, yeah, it could be brittle because we go away from checkboxes completely to something that's nicer, like selectable buttons that aren't actually checkboxes underneath. So I don't disagree. There's sort of, I'm less concerned about the visual output being checked. Although I could do it. I mean, James Short does quite a nice job with his Quixote, but that's a bit more concerned about the visual output rather than the content so much. But you could do it. I mean, it would be interesting to say I want, and it's not worth it though. It's like I want to write a test where I can say there should be a role and it should have 6 selectable things, where selectable is whatever fulfills as being selectable. The graphic game that you change the UI, we basically write in the test that yeah. I mean, and you know, because we write the automated tests. For me, it's about behavior, and UI visual display isn't a lot of behavior. If there was actual behavior, like if I selected this and this, then it'd have some other thing be unselected because of some, you know, logic, that I'd want to test. But the pure display is not behavior really, or it's not behavior that I wrote, so I wouldn't test it. So let's see. Checkbox. Checkbox. What do I want to use? Is this an input type? It's an input type? When did that happen? I'm such an old school HTMLer. It has always been an input type, so why am I getting confused? Why am I thinking that there's something else? It's been so long since I've written this that it just looks foreign to me. I guess I'm thinking of this. Maybe. Oh, I'm thinking of the drop down. That's why I'm getting confused. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay. So what we want is pretty much an input type checkbox. And so the ID, that's going to be a good question. That's probably going to come from us iterating through the roll and getting the dies out of it. So ID equals, this is going to be TH ID. Oh, now I got to look at the docs for Thymeleaf to figure out how to do this. Anix8889. Yes. Java with a bit of HTML throw in for front end. So let's go. So Thymeleaf. Docs. Move to the spring. One of the problems with the Thymeleaf docs is there's sort of the split of the docs, and I never remember where to look for what I want. There's the Thymeleaf plus Spring, which has some basic stuff. So checkbox fields. Okay, so this is what I want. So we basically have a label and then the th field. Right. Okay. So it'll be inside the form we need a form object so that it can iterate over that. Okay, so we'll do that. Oh, cool. Then maybe you'll be able to help us move this along. So what we want is inside this form, the th object is going to be let's see. This stuff always gets confusing because it's like, what do I want? What do I want coming in from basically posting the form? I basically want. Do I want just a list of dice being kept? Does that mean each individual die? Or do I want to specify the indexes of the dice I want to keep? I think I want the indexes. I mean, I could use the values. That would probably be fine because 1 6 is just as good as another 6. If it's in the dice roll, it's in the dice roll. And if I re-roll 1 6 versus re-rolling another 6, it makes no difference. But I feel like it'll be easier to manipulate if we use an index. I think. Well, let's try it. As we learned in our current reading of the TDD book, instead of spending lots of minutes on possibly suspect reasoning, we just write code to see what happens, see what works. Okay, so we would like the ID sequence number be Can I get the index? Yeah, the select option, that's what I was thinking of when I was writing that stuff, and I realized that's not what I wanted. Okay. This stuff always confuses me because the syntax for sort of building up these input fields, especially for checkboxes, is really a bit convoluted. You almost want like a little wizard. Like, here's the thing I want to iterate over, and here's what I want the IDs and values to look like. That would be cool. Alright, so let's do this. What we're iterating over see, they always cheat. here, like they're cheating by using the li and ul, but it's like if I don't want that, what do I do? I mean, I can put it directly on the label, but I can't use that to do the iteration. So I could put it in a div. Yeah, I don't know why they didn't do that. So again, sort of like one of the many problems I have with the Thymeleaf documentation is they don't start off with really simple self-contained examples. And I know they have this running example, but it makes it hard when you sort of dive in. I want to solve this. How do I do this? Very much more of a each individual recipe is self-contained. It would be easier to work with. So let's see. So we'll basically div, and we'll do th each. And so what we're going to iterate over is the roll, which right now won't work because roll is just a string. Would it iterate through the characters if we did that? I don't think so. And so inside of the div, we're basically going to have the label for the checkbox, and that's going to look weird. But we're not concerned about looks right now. So this is going to be th4. And so this ids.next. I realize to use ids.next function. ids.next versus ids.seek. Hey there, Junin Ho. I'm working on an implementation, a TDD implementation of the Yacht dice game. Oh, cool, Grumpy Game. Did you use the Yacht rules or the Yahtzee rules, and how did that go? What was your front end for that? Let's see. Let's see. Only answer that. Lives prefer to item management. Okay, that doesn't help me. See Java Doc API for that. Oh, you put it onto itch.io? Oh, throw the link into the chat. I'd love to take a look at it. Where are the API docs? There they are. Now, is that for API? Where is that? That's expression ID. Expression ID. So if you're gonna point to see JavaDoc API for this class, and then I go to see the JavaDoc for that class, and you don't tell me anything about how these things work, that is not really helpful. Not helpful. Expression object for performing operations related to markup IDs inside as time, right? An object of this class usually help I'm fine if I don't know that your JavaDoc has no JavaDoc, has basically just no doc. If you're gonna point to it explicitly in your docs, that's, I'm sorry, inexcusable. You're right, don't get confused. Oh, I don't know, we've seen worse docs. We've definitely seen worse docs. Yes, I'm sorry, I was getting confused. That was my problem. So we should not get confused. So what I want is I want to grab the ID the index of the element that I'm currently processing. So so that's a separate property. So keeping track of the status of your iteration, the status variable. Okay, so what I want is actually then, I don't want to use IDs, I want the status variable. It's open source, you improve the docs. Yeah, I mean, yeah. That's not, I mean, it's not an invalid statement to say, if something is confusing, we'd appreciate a pull request to improve it. But if there's nothing there and you're expecting other people to add it, that's kind of, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the who the folks are who are the maintainers of Thymeleaf. I mean, given that it's sort of a primary, almost the de facto standard for modern Spring Boot, as far as I'm concerned, modern Spring Boot MVC stuff. It would be nice if Pivotal helped out. I mean, they're gaining benefit from it. TDD to do docs. Yeah, I always try to go to Stack Overflow as sort of a last resort. And I probably would have done a search if I didn't find anything in the docs. I do prefer going to the docs first because they would be canonical, right? They're going to have the absolute correct. If anything is going to be correct, it's likely going to be the docs. Not always, but I will certainly look there first, especially for things that are fast moving and changing over time, like Spring. Because I often, you do searches and you end up like, well, here's what we did in Spring 3.1. It's like, I'm using 5.2. 3.1 was like 8 years ago. And maybe it still works, but I want to know, what would you do today? And Stack Overflow doesn't always answer it that way. Synix889, is there a reason why Spring's own tags aren't used as widely? Are you talking about Spring's, what is it, their Spring expression stuff? Or something else? Okay, so basically it's this part. Okay. So what we want is each is basically right. So the each is so there's going to be die, comma, index from that. Yeah, that's the each part. And then what we were looking at was, I guess we can put the input type first. Why do they do that? I don't think it matters. Why do they have the input type here first and then the label, whereas here they have the label first and then the input type? And I've also seen label, basically the input being inside of the label tag, which apparently is the most accessible, except for places where it's not. I guess it doesn't matter when you've got the 4. But I'll put the label first because that's what makes sense to me. So put the label there. That's a 3.2 reference. So the Spring form tags, gosh, it's been a while since I've looked at those. From my memory, that is only working in JSPs. So Thymeleaf is a completely separate view engine. So the form tags are only for what makes sense in the context of JSPs, which I hope will die a fiery death. I mean, actually, I don't know anybody who's writing new applications that are using JSP. Yeah, I mean, I was just sort of joking about the 3.2 link because that tends to be what you find when you do a search. And I'm constantly having to like say, no, I want something that starts with a 5. But no, I mean, I kind of consider, and I'm not the only one, consider JSPs obsolete because you've got a horrible mixture of code and sort of display stuff, which is really bad. Okay, so we want the 4 to be basically the iter. Do you have an example of that? They just use it here. But basically the 4 is that, and then the input, the value. I'm confused. So here they've got the label for features 1. The ID of the input is features 1. Oh, so th value must splat out, or th field must splat out the ID for us. I feel like every time I do this, and it's been possibly close to a year since I've had to deal with Thymeleaf at this level, because I've been doing a lot of Vue, so I haven't actually done a lot of Thymeleaf front end stuff. I'm like, it says here, we can see here how the sequence suffix is added to each input's ID attribute. But who's doing that? What's causing that? Is it because we did the th field or the th value? The th value, I think the th value splats out the name and ID. So the name becomes the value and the ID becomes the value plus the sequence? It is sorcery, isn't it? I mean, I don't mind a little bit of magic, but Angular, yeah. Yeah, I mean, ugh. Alright. Thymeleaf, checkbox, index, oop. Let's see what that comes up. Oh yeah, and I want something like sometime current. That's probably what I want. See, I love how like I tell Google I want something since 2019 and it's showing me stuff from 2016 and 2017. Like, I know you want to show me more Stack Overflow stuff, but even the one you selected as the primary one is 2017. Thanks, but no thanks. Okay. So let's look at this example. You're not going to give me the... Well, that wasn't helpful. Not as advertised. Oh, here it is. Here's the input. So he put the each on the input itself, which we could do if we didn't care about the... and therefore, he's using the th text to do that. But what does the HTML look like, though? That's the problem. Like, this was JSP. No, I'd be struggling a lot more if it were JSP because I haven't used JSP in like 15 years. Yeah, so I'm doing something like that. We can splat out that, but I don't think we need to do that. We can just try the th field. Oh, I see. This is what I used to call the cheating method. So this is using the double underscore is one way of doing it. But I don't want to do it that way. Yeah, I don't want to treat this. I actually want to, because my thing is not really an object. So this is, I don't think, going to be helpful. So we'll have to worry about how to submit it back. I'm not worried about that right now. So that's not terribly helpful either. We could not bother with the label. We can do the label sort of the old-fashioned way. So let's see, the typist checkbox, the field, th field, th value, what was it? All right, so we got that part figured out. So what we want is th field, probably isn't going to be what we want because yeah, but each item in the roll is a die, which right now is basically just an integer. So I think we can do that, and then th, what is it? That's field, and then value is basically the index, except we need to wrap that. Okay. I have no idea what I'm doing. Nick says, taking a course on Spring and Udemy, instructor uses JSP in every single lecture, manually downloads dependency jars and copy pastes it into the class path and uses Eclipse. Oh my gosh. I won't ask you to out the author of that course, but that sounds like something that was built like 10 years ago. I mean, to not, like, even, like, all right, I've got 5 minutes left because I've got a short stream today because I've got some meetings later on today. Oh yeah. So usually what I end up doing here, and this is what now I remember, it's all coming back to me. There one nice thing about Thymeleaf, besides I think it's generally an okay framework, is that their test suite is really good. It's an entire project, but one of the nice things I should open this up. Do I have this on this machine? Let's see. And they should just turn that into like a cookbook. Let's here. No, I don't have it. Okay, we can go over here. Oops. Oh, here. So let's go to GitHub, Thymeleaf, Thymeleaf tests. Would help if I could spell. Boy, something's going on my machine. It should not be taking this long to grab a URL. What is going on? There we go. Okay. So this project, which is a separate project, is basically a whole bunch of examples. As you would expect from sort of these kinds of tests. So we've got, let's say, link builder, template engine, template parser, parsing, string 5, view. That's just the view stuff. We could just search. So what we'd want to search for is checkbox. So yeah, so it's a whole bunch of it's in the form test library. So let's go there. Yeah, occasionally GitHub Search is useful. Occasionally. So what we've got here is a form that you might put in your Thymeleaf template, and here is the then expected generated HTML. And so what's nice about this is literally what you'd want. Right? I know what I want it to look like when it's generated as HTML, and this then tells me what I need to do with it. And if they just had a way to turn this into a cookbook and make this more presentable and searchable, that would be awesome. Yes, this is Octatree. Love Octatree. So we can look at the different form tests. There might be some that are better for what we want. They're not named very well, unfortunately. Form 9, 10, 11 is not terribly useful. We'd want one that checkbox and each. So this one. Oh, of course, it's Form 20. Why didn't I look there in the first place? Which one would I want? Let's look at 20 first. And then I gotta end the stream. So here what we've got is we've basically given this as our input. Right, so we've got an entity, which is some general bean. It's got a thing called properties that has basically 2 entries in it. Here we've got the div with the th each, right? So one for each column, we're going to generate a checkbox. We're using type checkbox, so it should be th type. That way it knows how to generate this stuff. And then th field pulls from the properties, which is on the entity. Right, so this properties is on this entity. And then we're pulling out column, which is basically the column, and then the value is just whether it's on or not. That's interesting. And so then what we get is we see what the generated HTML is. And if that's not what we want, then we could look at this one, which is probably nicer. So, all right. Well, we're going to end it here. We know what we're going to do next time. I'll just make a note of that in my README. So what we're working on a lot of our add die selection check. You do the UI to select the dice to hold back. All right. And with that, I will see you next time.
Be strong.